The space around Proxima Centauri lit up with explosions. Commander Alice Miller gripped the edge of her command console as the UCS Vanguard shook violently. Another coalition ship had just been destroyed. Through the main viewport, she watched the burning wreckage drift across the stars. "Status report," she ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos. Lieutenant Frank Carter looked up from his station, his face pale in the flashing red emergency lights. "Not good, Commander. The 7th Fleet is down to 28% capacity. The UCS, Defiant and Resolute, are gone. The Intrepid's engines are crippled." Alice closed her eyes for a brief moment. 3,000 soldiers lost in the blink of an eye. Friends, colleagues, the best the coalition had to offer. "And the Calder?" she asked. "They've lost some ships, but their main battle group is still intact. Their shields are holding against." "Our weapons," Frank replied. The tactical display told the story better than words could. The blue icons representing coalition forces were being systematically erased by the advancing red mass of the Calder fleet. It wasn't a battle anymore. It was a slaughter. Paul Rivera, her executive officer, leaned closer to speak privately. "Commander, we need to order a retreat while we still can. We've lost this sector." Alice knew he was right. The logical choice was to save what remained of their forces and fall back to the inner colonies. But retreat meant abandoning Proxima Centauri, humanity's first and oldest colony beyond the solar system. Home to 12 million people. "The civilians," she said. "The evacuation isn't complete." "It won't ever be complete if we all die here," Paul argued. "We can cover their retreat, but we need to start pulling back now." A fresh series of explosions flashed outside the viewport. A UCS Dauntless, a heavy cruiser that had been with them since the start of the war, split apart under concentrated fire from 3 Calder vessels. "Commander Miller," called out the sensor operator, "the enemy is changing formation. They're preparing for another push." Alice studied the tactical display. The Calder ships were arranging themselves into their characteristic spear formation, designed to punch through defensive lines. Their previous attacks had weakened the coalition fleet's center. This thrust would likely break through entirely. "All ships reinforce the center line," she ordered. "Divert emergency power to forward shields." Even as she gave the order, she knew it wouldn't be enough. The Calder weapons were too powerful, their crystalline hulls too resistant to the coalition's energy weapons. 3 years of war had taught humanity painful lessons about their alien enemy, but they hadn't found an effective countermeasure to the Calder's natural advantages. Frank's console beeped with an incoming transmission. "Commander, we're receiving." "A priority message from Earth Command." Alice nodded. "Put it through." The message was text only, classified at the highest level. Alice read it twice, not quite believing what she was seeing. "Hold position at all costs. Special Asset Division. Inbound. Authorization Black 7. Estimated arrival 30 minutes. "They want us to hold for 30 more minutes?" Paul asked incredulously, reading over her shoulder. "We'll be space dust in 20. Alice stared at the authorization code. Black 7. In 3 years of war, she had never seen that classification used in actual combat operations. It was the stuff of rumors, whispered about by high-ranking officers after too many drinks. "Send acknowledgement," she told Frank. "Then open a channel to all remaining coalition ships." When the channel was ready, Alice straightened her uniform and spoke clearly. "This is Commander Miller. We have new orders from Earth Command. We are to hold our position and defend this sector at all costs. Reinforcements are on the way." She paused, knowing what she was asking of her fellow officers and their crews. "I know we're outnumbered. I know we're outgunned. But humanity has never backed down from a fight, and we're not starting today. For every minute we hold the line, more civilians escape from Proxima. More families survive. So we hold, no matter what. She closed the channel and turned to Paul. Order all ships to form a defensive perimeter around the civilian evacuation corridor. We funnel everything we have into protecting those transports. And the reinforcements? Paul asked quietly. What exactly is the Special Asset Division? Alice shook her head. I've only heard rumors. But the authorization code. Black 7 is reserved for assets that fall outside normal military protocols. Meaning what? Before she could answer, the ship rocked violently. A Calder energy beam had struck their starboard shields. Shields at 42%, reported the tactical officer. They're targeting our engines. Evasive maneuvers, Alice ordered. Return fire, all batteries. The next 20 minutes were pure chaos. 3 more coalition ships were destroyed. The Vanguard's shields failed, and hull breaches were reported. On decks 5 through 8, emergency bulkheads slammed shut, trapping crew members in sections. Exposed to vacuum, Alice wiped blood from a cut on her forehead as she coordinated what remained of their forces. The Calder pressed their advantage, their crystalline ships glittering against the darkness of space as they closed in for the kill. Commander, Frank called out, his voice strangely calm amid the destruction. Sensors are picking up a new ship dropping out of hyperspace. It's one of ours. The tactical display updated, showing a small vessel appearing at the edge of the battlefield. It was a design Alice had never seen before, sleek and dark, with minimal energy signatures. Identification? She asked. Frank checked his readings. UCS Reaper. No record in the fleet registry. A new communication came through. Audio only. The voice was male, clipped and formal. Coalition forces, this is Colonel George Simmons of the Special Asset Division. Hold your positions. We are deploying our assets now. Paul looked at Alice, confusion evident on his face. That's it? One small ship? That's our reinforcement? Alice watched as the mysterious vessel launched what appeared to be small pods toward the Calder fleet. Too small to be fighters. Barely large enough to hold a single person each. What are they doing? Paul whispered. Alice remembered the rumors she had heard about Black 7 operations. About soldiers who weren't quite human anymore. About the Length's Earth Command had gone to find a way to defeat the Calder. They're deploying the Wraiths, she said quietly. God help us all. The inside of the UCS Reaper was cold and dark. The ship's designers had removed all unnecessary systems to make room for what really mattered, the deployment chambers. 24 metal pods lined the walls of the main hold, each containing a single Wraith. Colonel George Simmons stood before the pods, his breath visible in the chilled air. The Wraiths needed the cold. Their enhanced bodies ran hot, especially before combat. Final systems check, he ordered. The ship's AI responded in a flat voice. All Wraith units operational. Combat readiness at 100%. Weapons systems primed. Simmons approached the central pod where Alpha 1 waited. Unlike the other units, Alpha 1 was awake, his single human eye watching Simmons through the small viewport in the pod. You understand the mission parameters? Simmons asked. Alpha 1's voice came through the pod speaker, a disturbing mix of human and synthetic tones. Infiltrate Calder vessels. Eliminate command structures. Disrupt fleet coordination. And your primary objective? Ensure survival of human forces at Proxima Centauri. Simmons nodded. The Wraiths might be walking weapons, but they still remembered what they fought for. Most of them, anyway. The Calder have never encountered your kind before, Simmons said. They expect human limitations, human fear. Use that against them. Alpha 1 didn't respond. He didn't need to. The Wraiths had been designed specifically to overcome the limitations that had hampered coalition forces throughout the war. Simmons stepped back and addressed all the pods. Deployment in 2 minutes. For Earth. The response came in unison, 24 voices speaking as one. For Earth. Simmons left the hold as the final launch preparations began. He made his way to the bridge, where Captain Lisa Boyd waited at the command console. Status of the battle? He asked. Lisa gestured to the tactical display. Coalition forces are down to 11 functional ships. The Calder are pressing their advantage. If we're going to do this, it needs to be now. Simmons nodded. Begin deployment. Sequence. The UCS Reaper shuddered slightly as the deployment pods launched one by one, streaking toward the Calder fleet like tiny missiles. Alpha One felt no fear as his pod accelerated toward the largest enemy vessel. Fear had been one of the first things the doctors had taken from him. Pain had been next. What remained was purpose. Clear, uncomplicated purpose. His pod struck the hull of the Calder ship with enough force to embed itself deeply in the crystalline material. Automatic systems activated, drilling through the remaining hull and creating a sealed entry point. When the pod door opened, Alpha One stepped directly into the alien vessel. The interior was strange. The corridors were hexagonal, lined with pulsing lights that served as both illumination and information transfer for the crystalline beings. Alpha One's enhanced vision could detect the patterns in the light pulses, a form of communication. He raised his weapon, a specialized rifle designed to shatter the Calder's crystalline bodies. His neural implants connected to the tactical network, showing the positions of the other Wraiths as they penetrated different enemy ships. The first Calder warriors appeared around a corner. They were tall, with bodies made of interlocking crystal segments that caught the light and broke it into rainbows. Their movements were fluid, despite their seemingly rigid structures. They fired their weapons immediately. Energy beams struck Alpha One in the chest and shoulder, burning through his outer layer of synthetic flesh and damaging the mechanical components beneath. His systems registered the damage, but did not translate it into pain. He simply adjusted his tactical assessment to account for the reduced functionality in his left arm. Alpha One returned fire. His specialized rounds struck the first Calder warrior and shattered its crystalline structure. The second warrior moved with surprising speed, flanking him and firing again. This shot took Alpha One's left leg out from under him. A normal human soldier would have fallen. A normal human soldier would have screamed in pain. Alpha One simply pivoted on his remaining leg and fired 3 more shots. Destroying the second warrior, using his functioning arm, he dragged himself forward. His damaged leg sparked and leaked hydraulic fluid, leaving a dark trail behind him. His systems began automatic repairs, rerouting power and sealing damaged components. Alpha One continued deeper into the ship, toward the command center indicated by the increased density of light pulses in the corridors. He encountered more resistance as he progressed. More shots struck his body. More systems failed. Still, he moved forward, eliminating any Calder in his path. His neural link provided updates from the other Wraiths. Beta 3 had reached the engine room of a Calder destroyer. Gamma 7 and Gamma 8 had seized control of a cruiser's weapon systems. Delta 4 had been completely destroyed, but not before eliminating a significant portion of a battleship's crew. The Calder were learning, adapting their tactics to this new threat. But they were learning too slowly. They still expected their enemies to retreat when wounded. They still expected fatal damage to stop an attack. The Wraiths defied these expectations with every step they took. Alpha One reached a large chamber that his systems identified as the ship's bridge. Inside, taller Calder beings stood around a central crystalline structure that pulsed with complex patterns of light. The ship's commanders. They turned as one when Alpha One entered, their crystal. Bodies vibrating in what might have been alarm. Energy weapons fired from multiple directions, tearing away more of Alpha One's synthetic flesh, exposing the metal endoskeleton beneath. He raised his weapon and began firing methodically, targeting the central crystal structure first. It shattered, with a high-pitched sound that his audio receptors registered as beyond normal human hearing range. The effect was immediate. The coordinated movements of the Calder commanders became erratic, their communication patterns fragmented. Alpha One continued firing, eliminating them one by one as they struggled to respond effectively. When the last commander fell, Alpha One connected to the tactical network and sent a simple message. Command structure neutralized. Similar messages were coming in from other wraiths across the Calder fleet. Ship after ship reported command disruptions, system failures, and loss of coordination. Alpha One's systems were failing. Too much damage had accumulated. His power core was operating at 17% capacity. Multiple limb functions were compromised. But it didn't matter. The mission was succeeding. As his systems began emergency shutdown procedures to preserve his core functionality, Alpha One's human eye looked out a viewport at the battle beyond. The remaining coalition ships were rallying, focusing their fire on the now disorganized Calder vessels. His last thought before shutdown was simple. Humanity would survive another day. High Executor Xanther stood in the central chamber of the Calder flagship Eternal Symmetry. The crystalline being's body glowed with pulses of blue light as it processed information from across the battlefield. Victory had been certain. Human defenses were crumbling. Their ships were failing. Their weapons could not penetrate Calder shields effectively. Then everything changed. "Explain," Xanther demanded, its voice a harmonic vibration that resonated through the chamber. Sub-Commander Krelvan's body dimmed slightly in deference. "Unknown High Executor. 24 small objects struck various ships in our fleet. Initial scans identified them as primitive projectiles. Not a significant threat. And now? Now we have lost contact with 7 vessels. 3 more report internal damage from unknown intruders. The humans are not retreating as predicted." Xanther's crystalline form vibrated with frustration. The Calder had studied humans extensively before this war. They understood human psychology, human tactics, human limitations. Humans were predictable. When wounded, they retreated. When outmatched, they surrendered. When their comrades fell, they became emotional and made errors. "Show me these intruders," Xanther ordered. A large crystal in the center of the chamber flickered to life, displaying footage from inside the cruiser Dominant Harmony. The images showed a corridor where several Calder warriors faced an approaching figure. The figure was approximately human-sized, but moved with unnatural speed. Its outer layer resembled human flesh in some places, but other areas exposed metal and synthetic materials. The Calder warriors fired their weapons repeatedly. Energy beams struck the intruder, burning away portions of its body. Yet it continued advancing, firing a weapon that launched projectiles capable of shattering Calder crystal bodies. "This is not consistent with known human combat units," Krelvan observed. "No," Xanther agreed. "This is something new." The display showed more footage from other ships. More intruders, all with the same relentless advance. They took damage that would kill normal humans instantly, yet continued fighting. One had lost both legs, but dragged itself forward using its arms, still firing its weapon with deadly accuracy. "They do not retreat when damaged," Xanther noted. "They do not attempt to help each other. They do not show fear." "Are they machines?" Krelvan asked. "Not entirely. See here." Xanther highlighted a section of footage showing an intruder with part of its face exposed. Beneath synthetic skin and metal components was unmistakably human tissue. They are human, but altered, enhanced. An alarm sounded through the chamber. The lights pulsed red. "We have intruders on this vessel," Krelvin reported. 4 entry points detected. Xanthur's crystalline body hardened in preparation for combat. Direct all warriors to protect the command chamber and the navigation matrix. We cannot lose. Coordination of the fleet. On the lower decks of the Eternal Symmetry, Beta 4 moved with mechanical precision through the alien corridors. Once known as Samantha Ward, she now existed only as a designation and a mission. Her right arm had been completely destroyed by Calder weapons, and a large portion of her face was exposed machinery. But her neural processor continued to function perfectly. The mission parameters were clear. Locate the ship's navigation metrics and place destabilizer charges. According to intelligence gathered during previous encounters with the Calder, destroying this matrix would disable fleet-wide coordination for any ships. Linked to this flagship. Beta 4 encountered a group of 5 Calder warriors blocking her path. Their crystal bodies were larger than those she had encountered previously, indicating elite status. They fired in unison. Multiple energy beams struck Beta 4, causing critical damage to her remaining arm and torso. Systems failure warnings flashed across her neural display. Mobility reduced to 38%. Weapon systems offline. A normal soldier would have died. Beta 4 simply changed tactics. She charged directly at the Calder formation, moving faster than they anticipated. Before they could fire again, she crashed into the lead warrior, using her momentum and reinforced body to shatter its crystalline form. As it broke apart, she grabbed one of its crystal shards with her remaining hand and used it to strike at the others. The Calder had never faced an enemy that would sacrifice its own body as a weapon. They hesitated, a fatal error. Beta 4 destroyed 3 more before the last one managed to fire again, burning through her chest cavity. Critical damage. Core systems failing. But the path was clear. Now Beta 4 dragged herself forward, her movements becoming less fluid as her systems failed one by one. She reached a large chamber filled with pulsing crystals arranged in a geometric pattern. The navigation matrix. The last of her functional systems. She removed the destabilizer charges from a compartment in her leg and placed them around the matrix. Her timing systems were damaged, so she set the charges for immediate detonation. As the first explosion tore through the matrix, Beta 4's consciousness faded. Her last transmission to the Wraith Tactical Network was simple. Mission accomplished. Throughout the Calder fleet, the effects were immediate and devastating. Ships that had been moving in perfect coordination suddenly lost their navigational links. Some drifted aimlessly. Others collided with each other, their pilots unable to compensate without the central guidance system. On the bridge of the UCS Vanguard, Commander Alice Miller watched in disbelief as the tactical display updated. The organized red mass representing the Calder fleet was breaking apart, individual ships moving erratically or not at all. "What's happening?" Paul asked, his voice hushed with awe. "The Wraiths," Alice replied. "They're targeting the Calder command and control systems." Frank looked up from his communications console. "Commander, Colonel Simmons is hailing us from the Reaper." "Put him through," Alice ordered. Colonel Simmons' voice came through clearly. "Commander Miller, the Calder fleet coordination has been compromised. My team has identified weak points in their hull structure. Transmitting targeting. Data now." Data streamed onto the tactical display, highlighting specific points on the Calder ships. All remaining coalition vessels. Alice called over the fleet-wide channel. "Focus fire on the designated coordinates. This is our chance." The remaining human ships rallied, directing their weapons with new purpose. Where their attacks had previously been absorbed by the Calder's superior shields, They now struck with devastating effect at the newly identified vulnerabilities. For the first time in the battle, perhaps for the first time in the war, the Kaldor were on the defensive, and they were losing. High Executor Xanthar fought to maintain control of the situation as chaos spread throughout the Kaldor fleet. The navigation matrix was destroyed. Ships could no longer coordinate their movements or attacks. For a species that relied on perfect unity, this was devastating. Restore communications using secondary systems, Xanthar ordered, its crystalline body pulsing with urgent patterns of light. Impossible, Subcommander Krelvan replied. The human intruders have targeted all backup systems as well. They knew exactly where to strike. A violent explosion rocked the flagship. The deck trembled beneath them. The human vessels are firing on us, another officer reported. They have identified structural weaknesses in our hull design. Xanthar processed this information rapidly. The humans had been losing this battle only minutes ago. Their tactics had been predictable, their weapons ineffective against Kaldor shields and armor. Now everything had changed because of these new soldiers, these modified humans who fought without fear or limitation. We must adapt, Xanthar decided. Order all ships to operate independently. Each commander must fight without central coordination. But even as the order was given, Xanthar knew it might be too late. The Kaldor had never trained for independent action. Their entire military doctrine was built around unified hive mind. Tactics. Another explosion, closer this time. The lights in the command chamber flickered. High Executor, Krelvan said urgently. We have more intruders approaching this chamber. Our warriors cannot stop them. Xanthar moved to the weapons console. If these human abominations wanted to reach the command chamber, they would have to face the High Executor personally. On the lower decks of the Eternal Symmetry, Alpha 1 had reactivated after emergency repairs by his internal systems. His left arm was completely gone. His right leg functioned at 43% capacity. Multiple breaches in his synthetic skin exposed the metal and circuitry beneath. But his mission was not complete. His neural interface still functioned, connecting him to the tactical network. He received updates from the surviving wraiths. Only 14 remained operational. The others had been destroyed or damaged beyond function. But their sacrifice had achieved the primary objective. The Kaldor fleet was in disarray. Alpha 1's new target was the flagship's command chamber. Intelligence suggested that High Executor Xanthar was personally directing the battle. From there, eliminating the Kaldor leadership would further disrupt their ability to recover from this setback. He moved through the corridors, encountering heavy resistance. The Kaldor were learning, adapting their tactics. They no longer fired single shots, expecting their enemy to fall. Now they concentrated their fire, trying to destroy Alpha 1's core systems with overwhelming force. But it wasn't enough. Alpha 1 had been designed to withstand exactly this kind of damage. As long as his central processor remained intact, he could continue fighting. He reached a heavily reinforced door, the entrance to the command chamber. His scanning systems detected multiple Kaldor life signs inside, including one significantly larger than the others. The High Executor, Alpha 1 placed his last explosive charge on the door and moved back. The explosion tore through the reinforced material, creating an opening. He immediately charged through, firing his weapon at the Kaldor defenders inside. High Executor Xanthar was waiting. The massive crystalline being fired a weapon directly at Alpha 1, striking him in the chest. The blast was more powerful than any Alpha 1 had encountered before, tearing through his armored body and damaging his power core. System alerts flooded his neural display. Power levels critical. Mobility systems failing. Weapon systems offline. But Alpha 1 wasn't finished. As his systems failed around him, He activated his final protocol. His power core began to overload, energy building to dangerous levels. Xanther approached the damaged intruder, studying it with a mixture of curiosity and caution. You continue to function despite terminal damage. The High Executor communicated via electromagnetic pulses. This defies organic behavioral patterns. Alpha One's vocal synthesizer was damaged, producing only static. But he didn't need words. His human eyes stared directly at the Calder leader as his power core reached critical levels. The explosion ripped through the command chamber, destroying everything within it, including High Executor Xanther and Alpha One himself. On the bridge of the UCS Vanguard, Commander Alice Miller watched as a massive explosion tore through the side of the Calder flagship. "What was that?" Paul asked. Frank checked his readings. Energy signature matches a Wraith power core overload. They're designed to self-destruct when critically damaged. Alice felt a chill run through her. These soldiers weren't just willing to die for their mission. They were designed to use their own destruction as a weapon. "Status of the Calder fleet?" she asked. "They're breaking formation completely," the tactical officer reported. "Several ships are actually retreating." "I've never seen that before." Colonel Simmons' voice came through the CUM system. "Commander Miller, our primary objective has been achieved. The Calder command structure has been eliminated. Their fleet coordination is destroyed." Alice looked at the tactical display. For the first time in 3 years of war, the Calder were retreating. The battle that had seemed hopelessly lost just an hour ago was now turning into a victory. "All ships," she ordered, "press the advantage. Target any Calder vessels attempting to regroup. Don't let them restore their coordination." The remaining coalition ships moved with new purpose, their crews energized by the unexpected turn of the battle. They concentrated fire on the larger Calder vessels, preventing them from organizing the smaller ships. One by one, the Calder ships began to jump to hyperspace, abandoning the battlefield. It was unprecedented. In every previous engagement, the crystalline aliens had fought to the last ship, never retreating, never surrendering. "They're running," Paul said in disbelief. "They're actually running." Alice nodded slowly, watching as more enemy ships disappeared from the tactical display. They never expected to face something like the Wraiths, an enemy that can't be stopped by pain or fear. "What exactly are these Wraiths?" Paul asked quietly. "They're not normal soldiers." "No," Alice agreed. "They're not. And I'm not sure I want to know what was done to make them that way." As the last of the Calder ships fled the battlefield, the bridge crew of the Vanguard began to cheer. They had survived. Against all odds, they had won. But Alice couldn't join in the celebration. She was thinking about the cost of this victory, not just in coalition lives, but in the humanity that had been sacrificed to create the Wraiths. The battle was won, but at what price? 3 days after the battle, Commander Alice Miller stood in the medical bay of the UCS Vanguard. The room was cold and quiet except for the soft hum of medical equipment. Before her was a specialized regeneration chamber, its glass surface fogged from the inside. She could barely make out the figure within. Dr. Linda Hayes approached, datapad in hand. Her face looked tired. She hadn't slept much since the battle ended. "How is he?" Alice asked. "If by he you mean Wraith designation Gamma 2, then he's stable," Linda replied. "Though I wouldn't use human terms like he to describe what's in there." Alice looked through the fogged glass again. The shape inside was vaguely human, but much of its body had been destroyed in the battle. Metal framework and synthetic materials were visible where flesh should be. Was he always like this? Alice asked quietly. Linda sighed and checked her datapad. According to the files Colonel Simmons provided, Gamma 2 was once Kevin Rogers, Marine, decorated, critically injured during the Mars campaign 2 years ago. His body was damaged beyond conventional medical help, so they turned him into this. Project Lazarus, Linda said, named after the biblical figure who rose from the dead. These soldiers were all fatally wounded in combat. The program offered an alternative to death. Alice frowned. Did they choose this? The files say they volunteered. But how much choice does a dying soldier really have? Linda's voice was bitter. Their brains were altered. Pain receptors disabled. Fear responses removed. They kept enough of their human minds to follow orders and apply tactical training, but everything else. She shook her head. The door to the medical bay slid open, and Colonel Simmons entered. His uniform was crisp, his posture perfect, but his eyes revealed exhaustion. Commander Miller, he nodded in greeting. I understand you've been asking questions. About my wraiths. They're not yours, Alice said sharply. They're people. Or they were. Simmons' expression didn't change. They're soldiers who continue to serve humanity even after conventional death would have claimed them. Thanks to them, we've achieved our first major victory against the Calder. At what cost? Alice gestured to the regeneration chamber. How many were lost in the battle? 10 wraiths were destroyed beyond recovery, Simmons replied clinically. 14 others, including Gamma 2 here, can be repaired and returned to service. The casual way he spoke of them made Alice's skin crawl. Return to service? They've given enough. More than enough. Simmons stepped closer to the chamber, studying the damaged wraith inside. Commander, I understand your discomfort. But we're fighting a war for human survival. The Calder have superior technology, superior biology. We needed an advantage. And this is it? Turning our own wounded soldiers into weapons? They volunteered, Simmons insisted. Every wraith chose this. Over death. Did they know what they were choosing? Linda asked. Did they understand what they would become? Simmons didn't answer immediately. For a moment, his professional mask slipped, revealing something like regret beneath. They knew they would continue to serve, to protect Earth and her colonies. For soldiers like them, that was enough. Alice turned back to the chamber. Does he still remember? His life before? His family? Some memories remain, Simmons admitted, but they're distant, like memories of a different person. The chamber made a soft beeping sound. Inside, Gamma 2's remaining human eye opened. Looking directly at them through the fogged glass, Alice felt a chill run down her spine. There was still something human in that gaze, something aware and understanding. I want to speak with him, she said. Simmons hesitated. The wraiths aren't designed for conversation, Commander. They communicate mission parameters, tactical assessments, not small talk. I don't care, Alice insisted. Open the chamber. Linda looked to Simmons, who reluctantly nodded. She tapped commands into the control panel, and the chamber's seal broke with a hiss of cold air. The glass panel slid aside. Gamma 2 lay motionless, connected to various repair systems. Half his face was synthetic material, the other half scarred human tissue. One arm ended at the elbow, with temporary connectors attached where his forearm would eventually be reattached. Wraith Gamma 2, Simmons said formally. Commander Miller wishes to speak with you. The Wraith's eye focused on Alice. When he spoke, his voice was a disturbing blend of human and synthetic tones. Commander. Alice swallowed hard. I wanted to thank you, all of you. You saved my ship, my crew, the entire colony. Gamma 2 was silent for a moment. When he responded, his words were slow, as if speech was difficult. We fulfilled our purpose. Your purpose should have been to live a normal life, Alice said softly. Not this. No choice, Gamma 2 replied. Body broken. War not over. Could still serve. Alice felt tears threatening to form, but forced them back. Do you regret it? Becoming this? Gamma 2's mechanical systems whirred slightly as he processed the question. Regret ... is human. I remember being human. Remember ... family. Wife. Daughter. They think I died on Mars. They don't know about this? Alice asked, glancing at Simmons. The Wraith program is classified, Simmons said stiffly. Official records list all participants as killed in action. Better that way, Gamma 2 added. Remember me as I was. ... this. Alice reached out hesitantly, then placed her hand gently on what remained of Gamma 2's human shoulder. I promise you this. Your sacrifice won't be forgotten. When this war is over, the truth will come out. People will know what you gave up for them. Gamma 2's eye closed briefly. Win war first. Then ... truth. Simmons stepped forward. He needs to return to regeneration, Commander. The repair process isn't complete. Alice nodded and stepped back, allowing Linda to close the chamber. As the glass fogged over again, hiding Gamma 2 from view, Alice turned to Simmons. The Calder will be back, she said. And they'll be ready for the Wraiths next time. Yes. Simmons agreed. But now we've proven they can be beaten. For the first time, humanity has hope. Alice looked once more at the row of regeneration chambers, each containing what remained of a soldier who had given everything. Not just their life, but their humanity itself. Hope, she repeated quietly. I just pray we don't lose our own humanity while trying to save it.